Welcome back into another episode of George in the Jungle, presented as always by Remington Tavern, coming at you live from the Cincy Light Studios. Remington Tavern can be found at 8892 Glendale Milford Road, 45140, where they have their daily happy hour from 3 to 7 p.m., $5 bourbon whiskey Wednesdays, Bottle Cap Bonanza Thursdays from 7 to 9 p.m. You can check them out on Instagram at RemyTavCincy. That's REMITAV Cincy with a Y. Or follow them on Facebook. While you're there, grab yourself an ice cold Cincy Light on tap, mainly because it's the best drink in the city, and also because we like to support the people who support us. But with that, George, we are underway, and the Cincinnati Bearcats. Can we say they're rolling at this point? I think it's fair to say they're rolling.
I would say yes, they're rolling, baby. 4 straight wins, that's rolling.
As they're coming off a 38-30 victory over Iowa State on Saturday, the crowd rushes the field as they upset the 14th ranked team in the nation. Sure, they're missing pieces. That's all part of it. Right. I don't discredit. I know plenty of Iowa State fans are trying to discredit the win. Sure, fine, cope however you need to, but you are without those players for the rest of the season. It's not as if they were both just dinged up for this one game. It wasn't like a Sam Leavitt situation with Arizona State last year. They're gone. This is your team now. So I'm not going to feel any sympathy for you. You lost, plain and simple. And it was a crazy game again. I hate bringing referees up, but I don't understand some of the calls. Whatever. It is what it is. 2 weeks in a row.
Bring them up too, and things are going to happen. But boy, there were some weird things in that one.
2 weeks in a row, as the Kansas game, and now the Iowa State game. It seems that for whatever reason, the OG Big 12 teams are getting the calls that the Bearcats simply are not. I still think that was an interception at the end of the half rather than pass interference. If you want to call pass interference, I think you could on the offense. However, they still came away victorious and battled through all the adversity in this one.
Yeah, and I couldn't see that replay. You couldn't really see if McDoom was grabbing. It didn't look like it looked like the receiver extended first.
A little bit of jersey, but the receiver certainly pushed off 2 hands to make that catch.
And that ref, I mean, he didn't wait a millisecond to fire that flag, and he threw it with authority. I mean, I saw it as soon as it came out, and he was adamant he saw something. The replay, you couldn't see completely, but it looked to me like it was clean. And then the other one that drove me nuts was the one on Logan Wilson for the unnecessary roughness. That was a tackle.
There was no whistle. Apparently, they were trying to say that the play had been stopped. That player certainly wasn't stopping. So I don't know what Logan Wilson was supposed to do.
No way. That happened right in front of me. Now I
was on the field,
but I don't hear a whistle.
I didn't hear a whistle either. I was on the field.
I mean, he could have been blowing it, but there was a lot of noise.
If you're blowing a whistle, you're supposed to be, as a referee, waving your hands, plays dead, and running out onto the field. There was none of that either.
Right. Yeah, I was confused by those, but UC had 13 total penalties. That's still way too many, and a lot of them, as we know, were deserved. I mean, it was very frustrating. Those illegal man downfield down there on, 2 of them came within what seemed like 3 plays. And plays that were going to work. And that was very frustrating, but those were legit.
Gerhard talked about those.
A little more about that today. So
yeah, Gavin talked about those today in his presser. So he certainly owned up to it as far as Tayo being in the wrong place.
The other one was on Tayo, who kind of thought they were running the run version of that play and not the RPO version. So he started to go down and engage when he shouldn't have. And so those are legit. And that's the only nitpicky thing you would have about that game. Maybe not the only, but the most glaring is just the penalties on Cincinnati, in my opinion. other than that, this team's playing well, and penalties are a bit of a problem. They're starting to rack them up, and they're not the most penalized team in the country, but they're closing in on that honor if they're not careful.
But good teams figure out how to overcome all of these things. They figure out ways to win. They find their own luck. I've said this for weeks now in different shows here on this network, but granted, they're not getting that luck in the turnover department, but they are finding their luck. And you hit some of those big plays. I mean, you score on 5 straight drives in the first half, every drive you have in the first half, and you give yourself a nice little cushion for things like the penalties in the second half, things like the adjustments that Iowa State made in the second half, and you still find yourself through all of that on the winning side because of what you built in the first half. And they're certainly not all going to be that way. I think this week you're still going to have a test. Record be damned as far as what UCF's record is.
Right.
But you'd still, they talked about it today. You just have to take it one practice at a time, one play at a time in practice. They're very much beating that drum. They all said it. Swordsby said it. Coach said it. Gerhardt said it. They're all giving the same message. And the focus is certainly just one step at a time.
Yeah. And, there's a little bit of a rivalry with Central Florida. They know some players on that team. They know what Miles Montgomery is capable of and the kind of season he's having. They know how tough they played Kansas this past week, and that game came down to the wire. Kansas pulled it out, and if Central Florida wasn't dealing with the injuries they're dealing with, who knows? That could have been different. They've got a little bit of a quarterback issue now because of injuries, and I'm not sure who the Bearcats will see this week, but they just better be ready because anytime you play that team, they've got some speed. They recruit Florida very well. So you know what you're going to see and that they're always capable. And as you said, forget the records. This is a team that's going to have some talent, and this is a team that loves to play against Cincinnati.
Yeah, you don't know what quarterback is going to be starting. You kind of had that same situation last year when you played at UCF, as you played several different quarterbacks in that game, and that game came down to the wire as well. So I don't expect, truthfully, anything different come Saturday, and I think that Nippert's going to have to be loud and rocking. But let's get back to Iowa State game. I talked about the offensive explosion in the first half. What impressed you, George, if we're talking about the offense?
Well, the biggest wow of the game is when Tawi Walker ran over that poor Willett guy. I would have loved to have seen that film session. Oh my God, that poor kid couldn't find a hole big enough to crawl into, I'm sure. And tough kid. I looked him up. Smart kid. He's on all the all academic teams and all this. And I know they asked, and it may have been Evan Pryor. They asked after the game what he thought of that and what went through his mind. And I know what went through my mind, and that is, God, I'm glad I'm not playing linebacker or defensive back for Iowa State today, because that was a leveling like you've never seen. And then, you look at and I don't know if I think in the first half they scored a touchdown on 3rd and 5, a touchdown on 4th and 1. They were just converting everything. I mean, they had that offense clicking. Sorsby had it clicking. And when you come out and establish the run the way they did, because let's not forget about Evan Pryor with 2 touchdowns, 2 great runs to the end zone, good hard runs, even though, he's kind of the scat back kind of guy as opposed to Walker, but he can still power the ball in the end zone, and he showed that. I think it was the second touchdown. They were going right to left where I was sitting. Trying to remember what quarter that was, but very impressive run. And that makes everything else kind of open up, and it did. I mean, they just I don't think Iowa State knew what hit them in that first half when they put 31 on the board.
So I've got a stat for you from the run game. This comes courtesy of CFB Film Room on Twitter. But they said that of the 24 attempts, 200 yards, 2 touchdowns by the running backs, against Iowa State. There were 10 broken or missed tackles by Iowa State, or by Cincinnati against Iowa State, and 128 yards before contact. And that is what wins you a second consecutive offensive line of the week for the Big 12. 128 yards before contact of those 200, George. That's crazy.
Yeah. Well, and we'll talk, you look at this offensive line and how well they're playing. It does make you feel like you can do anything. There were big holes.
You could have driven a semi.
Yeah.
Yes.
There were big holes. There were guys not getting hit till they were 3 or 4 yards down the field, if then. That line is playing so well. Still only giving up 1 sack on the year. Some of that is because Sorsby's who he is, but you give these guys a lot of credit. And I know some of those PFF grades, maybe, on Buford and some of those guys. And I think he got dinged for penalties and things of that nature.
Probably.
And obviously there's things he's got to clean up. But overall, as a unit, they're playing pretty much as well as any offensive line I think I've seen UC have. I mean, they are getting it done right now. And really, they had the false starts in that first half at Nebraska, but they took it to Nebraska a little bit in that game, especially in the second half up front. And I've been really pleased. And you look at Iowa State coming in here 2 years ago, and it was obvious. They were bigger, faster, stronger. Every metric you use to determine good, tough football teams, they were heads above UC in that department. It was not the other way around this time, but Cincinnati has arrived when it comes to the physicality, the size, and the speed of the Big 12. It looks like they're there. And I did not know that was going to happen. I wasn't sure if and when it was ever going to happen, but it has happened this year. And then you look at the wide receivers they brought in. That's made such a big difference that there is separation. And it came in very handy in the fourth quarter for the Bearcats to have that speed, when they're looking at a 3rd and 8 and possibly giving the ball back to Iowa State with a chance to tie this game, because I think it was it an 8-point or 9-point game at that point? I think it was 8. Was it 9? I can't remember. I think it was 8. But anyway, they got it done. The bomb comes through, and boy, that was 31 time since the really even halftime. I didn't feel great because it was 31-7, then 31-15. Iowa State's getting the ball back. I felt like I could finally release my breath and start breathing again.
It was 31-22. It was a 9-point game, George.
9-point.
If they had scored 8, because I had told Chad, if they score 8 here, you cover the spread.
Yeah.
I leaned over during the game and told him, you're not winning, but if you score 8, you cover the spread if you're Iowa State. But in this one, Joe Royer leads the receivers with 4 catches for 20 yards and a touchdown. And after that touchdown, I don't know if he had another catch. I don't recall if he did or not.
No, either. That was a nice, impressive touchdown, though. The dude's got some balance.
But they pretty much took away Cyrus Allen, 3 for 22. They took away Jeff Caldwell, 1 for 21. I think Sorsby said today some of the adjustments they made were defending the sidelines.
Yeah.
But you still find other ways to find some of those weapons, like you talked about. Caleb Goody breaking off that 82-yard touchdown. He was wide open all day. Sorsby missed him twice on similar routes, and then finally hit him on that 3rd time. And I was watching him from the box. He was gone on, I don't know, probably 5 or 6 different times. He was beating whoever had him over the top.
Yeah, that one I think it was in the first half, in the end zone. That would have been a touchdown, but Brendan missed that pass. You're not going to hit them all, but he did probably miss, I'm going to say, 4 passes in that first half that he hasn't been missing. Nothing to worry about. It just happens. It happens. I didn't feel like he was quite as sharp, and it would be impossible to probably be any sharper than he was at Kansas. So you get spoiled real quick in that department. But I felt like he missed some throws. These are just some minor bitches offensively because, I mean, they put 38 on the board. I mean, against Iowa State. These are such minuscule complaints. But, yes, he missed some passes in the first half. And then I would say this, and I hated this play. It would have worked if they pull it out. But the first time with the ball in the third quarter, your guys have not been on the field running a play for like an hour of clock time because
over an hour.
Yeah. And then you're asking them to execute that like a pitch play that you haven't run on an option. And I would have just, because everything was working so well in the first half on the ground, I would have been handing off there. I wouldn't have been running that right away. You know, once they get back in the flow and everything, okay. And it was especially bad because I got an Iowa State fan in front of me. And me and another guy were talking about what to do with the football on this play. He goes, "Oh, I think it's going to be a fumble on this play." And sure enough, it was a fumble. I told him he had to leave. I'm like, "I'm done with you. You got to go."
That's fantastic.
Those are very, very, very minor complaints about what was really a terrific afternoon of watching football. My only other complaint would be, because of all the penalties and a lot of the replays, that game took forever. You know,
the fourth quarter was so long.
3.5-minute timeouts and all that stuff made that game, yes, a 4-hour game basically. But it was worth it.
Yeah, the fourth quarter was, because I go down to the field for every fourth quarter, and it was the longest quarter of the game by far, and it felt like forever.
Well, I'll tell you what, that fourth quarter was forever because of this. I beat the deadline and got a fresh Cincy Light sitting down by my feet, and something happened. I looked down to take my first drink, and that can's gone. I must have kicked it or somebody did. I did not have a drink from like a minute left in the third quarter all the way to the end of that game. So that made it seem longer too.
Z-Fly in the chat says it was also way too hot. Good to see on the show, Z-Fly. I went to high school with him, George.
It was pretty hot.
Yeah, that should be the last one. I think the high this week is 68, 69, something like that.
It should be pleasant. God,
the low is like 40.
Game, but that's okay.
Yeah, it should be hoodie, shorts if you're feeling froggy, hoodie and jeans if you're trying to stay warm. But yeah, I think it should be a nice day. Football weather for sure. So like we were talking about, Iowa State defensively, what did you see from this Bearcats team? Any concerns? Personally, well, yeah. I like seeing guys like Christian Harrison step up with his 10 tackles. That's a big deal. He talked today about how the more reps you have in this defense, the more comfortable you feel. We've seen that over the course of the last 2 seasons with Tyson Veit being in control of this defense. So that's kind of no surprise that somebody as smart as Christian Harrison would say, the more reps you have, the more comfortable you feel. Now I'm out here making plays. We also saw Jalen Hunt step up, and that defensive line, I think, had probably more pressure on a quarterback than they've had all year. And
that was a good game by him.
That was encouraging. Of course, having Dante Corleone back doesn't hurt.
No, and he makes a difference when he's in there. No doubt about that. But they all played well. That was good to see. I mean, I still feel like, in this defense, and I think I think they're pretty much being asked to do this and not be overly aggressive on these receivers and taking chances. Maybe that's why we don't see any picks, so far this season. Maybe that's, I'm still seeing gaps where guys are left open. Now, to the UC's credit, I feel like they did a really good job in open field tackling. They let the guys make the catch. I just wish they would challenge a little more. And I think maybe as the season goes on, they will do that a little more. Maybe it is taking a little while to get used to all this and, guys running around in different spots. But that bothered me a little bit. It just feels a little too much bend but don't break. But all that being said, it's working. They're forcing teams to go on long marches. And the more an offense has to go on a long march, the bigger chance they're going to make a mistake, whether it's a penalty that gets them behind the sticks, anything. It's hard to continue those long marches. So I think that's part of that defensive philosophy they have. And I think you just kind of have to live with it at this point. And, they're probably, you want to see them up the talent back there in that defensive backfield a little bit. So they do have some guys that maybe can stick on receivers a little closer. I just feel like there's still a little bit too much cushion, but I understand the why. And part of the why is you've got an offense that's actually kicking ass right now. And so you don't want to screw this thing up. You want to make these offenses go on long marches to match what Sorsby and company are doing. So it's very interesting to watch. And so far it's been successful. I just hope they can keep it up. I don't know what third down conversions were. I think they third downs didn't look bad, but then you allowed 4 of 7 fourth down conversions and
those 4 of 16. 4 of 16 on third down.
So that's not bad. But then 4 of 7 on fourth down. Now all of a sudden, they're going for it on fourth down and converting. So you didn't stop them. You didn't get off the field. And I just feel like there's got to be a better way to play those fourth downs and a better way to stop those 2-point conversions. Because my God, if just say that Iowa State, and they did score another touchdown and they did get another conversion. So just like, geez, Pete, that was a little frustrating. But it's, again, like my complaints about the offense, these are somewhat minor. I think that pass defense has to tighten up a little bit, though, if they're going to go to where they ultimately want to get to.
I think it almost feels like once they get the lid off this turnover thing, it feels like they're going to start happening. I think it's just a matter of
new for them.
Getting one, and maybe you'll see several at that point. You talk about the long drives by Iowa State. Each one of their touchdown drives, George, went for 75 yards, all 4 of them.
Well, and that's another thing is that UC did great at. God bless the special teams, man. And I know, Logan Wilson took some hits for what he did, playing defensively, although I thought he had a pretty good game tackling, even though he got maybe he made one tackle too many, I guess, because he got that penalty. But he was big in the return game. He played well there. The whole special teams, where UC started their drives versus, and I meant to look that up, versus where Iowa State started theirs, had to be a pretty big difference. Iowa State was having to chew up a lot of yardage to get to the end zone.
Iowa State started on their own 27. Cincinnati started on their own 35 on average.
Okay, so there's a difference there. And, God bless the punter for pinning him back there too. He kicks that ball. He's got that backspin on. I'm like, this is perfect. And never did I dream it was going to be as perfect as it was. And then I think that's a red shirt freshman that downed it for UC. What a great play all the way around by those guys.
Yeah. I'm sorry, Max Fletcher. I almost said Mason. Had that 60-yard punt where he downed it at the 1-yard line. That was probably the best punt all season. And you desperately needed it at that point, kind of stalling them out. But yeah, Logan Wilson, three returns, 93 yards, average of 31. That's a pretty good day at the office as far as kickoff returners go. And look, special teams compared to what it's been the last 2 seasons has been such a much needed upgrade. It's been fantastic to watch them this year.
Yeah, I mean, these past couple of years before this season, I mean, it was an absolute problem. It killed them. And that's just, they weren't good enough to overcome stuff anyway. Not a lot of teams would be good enough to overcome what their special teams did to them the past couple of years and win consistently. It's just too hard to do.
So again, UCF this week, another nooner, George, because God forbid we have anything that happens after noon.
I know. That's all right, though. Hopefully they get the joint sold out. I know they got a few left, but boy, that place is special, and it's fun to watch a game there, and it does get loud, even if it's 40,000 or less. And how about the fans striping it out, baby? Like they did a great job at that.
It looked fantastic.
It really did. I was stunned because I don't know if you've ever seen it on the college football game when occasionally a stripe out will show up for a UC game on there. It looks great and perfect, but it looked like that. The people got it right. And Negative Phil said he was just going to wear whatever the hell he wanted, and God bless him. Our section was red. My wife got on him about that. He showed up in red, and it all worked out. It was great. And it worked out a lot better than what the poor Bengals had to do on Sunday, because it's hard to have a stripe out when 40% of the fans are wearing that baby blue jersey of the Detroit Lions. That screwed that stripe out totally on Sunday.
It did do that. Zach said that Cunningham said the homecoming game should be a night one, so we'll see if that comes to fruition or not.
Yeah, what
I say don't hold your breath.
That's daggone it. I knew this. I forget who that would be.
I'm gonna guess that would be Baylor.
Yes, it is. I believe that's right. Yes, Baylor is correct.
Yep. So
that's another team that came in here a couple years ago, and you saw
how much bigger they were
between their player and the UC players. It was stark, the difference. And God, it's just nice. And man, what a job they did hitting that portal. Those guys, I don't know what their hit percentage is on this class, but it's pretty darn good.
It's been pretty nice. But speaking of roster moves, George, as we switch gears here and we start talking about you alluded to that other stripe out that happened on this past weekend. The Cincinnati Bengals make a move today for the wily old veteran Joe Flacco. I think he and I are like the same age.
He's 40.
Well, I'm 41, so we're
right you're there. You're right in the wheelhouse there. You feel like playing quarterback?
Nope, sure don't.
No, I don't know how.
No,
he's
sir.
The Bengals' first 40-year-old player.
He's also the Bengals' first Super Bowl winning quarterback.
Is that right?
In their history.
Man. They've rolled some fossils in years past. I guess, Jay Schrader never won one.
Neil O'Donnell never won any.
O'Donnell didn't. He came close.
Don Kitna never won any.
No. This the Bengals had to do something after that debacle on Sunday. You can't be sitting there at 2-3, and the Bengals, we know how they are with these midseason trades and all that. They never touch these things. But you can't be sitting there at 2-3 and Jake Browning playing the way he is and not do anything when this division is totally up for grabs. I had no idea that Baltimore was going to get off to this rough of a start. Now, the Steelers are 3-1. But the Browns, they're 1-4 as well. And the Bengals are 2-3. So how, as anyone in that building, from Zach Taylor to the front office, the ownership, can you look at that team who is still in a race for a division and not make a move after what you've seen these past 3 weeks out of Jake Browning?
To me, it's frustrating that it took this long to make a move. You should have probably done this after last week. I don't know how many terrible weeks you had to see. I tweeted this out this past week, but Zach Taylor hitched his wagon to Jake Browning, and I honestly wish both of them would just get out of the organization. Like, you can't tie yourself to this guy, say he's your guy, and have him continue to perform this poorly, especially if you're the play caller, you're the guy out there who's setting up this offense, and then you have the weird comments by Jamar Chase in the aftermath of the game, where I guess it was taken out of context, but saying that essentially the offense feels predictable. Everybody knows what they're doing. Right.
And Jake Browning played very well back in, 2023. He was 4-3. And I guess based on that, based on what the Bengals have seen since then, I understand them. You never want to say you're content with your backup quarterback. You always have to be looking to get better at every position in that league. You just do. But they felt really comfortable. He knew the offense. He'd been there. He had performed for them. It's hard for me to fault the Bengals for, coming in the season with Jake Browning as your backup quarterback because he'd given you something before. I get that. But you're right. Game one, look, he had that game-winning drive against Jacksonville when he came in. It looked like, okay, he's getting his feet under him. But that next game was not good. And then that debacle at Denver, it was time then. You're right.
Terrible.
They should have definitely, because you're sitting there then and you're thinking, he's not getting it done. And if something happens to him, then you're playing Rippon or White
Mike White,
or Sean Clifford. That's what you got. You got to go out and get someone. It's a quarterback. It's the most important position in name a sport. It's the most important position. And it's not even close in football. That's your guy. And so you got to make sure you have one. And they didn't have any, as it turned out. They thought they had one. But yes, they needed to make a move quicker. Now, these guys aren't growing on trees that are available, especially at, without selling yourself down the river too much with draft picks and everything else. But this was a no-brainer in my estimation.
For this trade, it cost you a fifth-round pick. You get a sixth back in return.
Yeah,
and
you just kind of swapped around.
And
that's
and
all
you
it
got Joe
was.
Flacco.
It was sixth is what's happened. And for a
reporting
quarterback that's going to probably start this weekend, you got to do that move.
Reporting did come out that the Bengals never contacted the Giants about either Russ Wilson or Jameis Winston. That surprises me a little bit. I would have thought you at least make the call, see
and see what it would cost.
I would have expected them to make the call to probably a half dozen guys if you're really truly looking to try and improve. Unless for some reason that I'll never understand, Joe Flacco was always your guy, but I don't know.
I don't know. You look at his numbers this year, and they look a lot like the guy he's replacing.
So, and he is statuesque. He is 40. But one thing that you don't have to worry about with him, as opposed to Jake Browning a little bit, Joe Burrow probably more so than either of those two, is that he's not going to really move out of the pocket. So if you have a quarterback who is pretty much going to be stationary, and we'll see, I imagine he's going to take everything out of shotgun, much like Joe Burrow. But I don't know. I think that it's probably, if you're this offensive line, it's probably a little easier to know he's only going to be there and maybe moving 2 or 3 yards this way, 2 or 3 yards that way, 2 or 3 yards back. And we only need to protect literally just the pocket. We don't have to worry about this, spread out line trying to protect in case he decides to scramble out or try and move to gain some more yards. I think that may be a little easier assignment for this offensive line, but we'll see. That certainly remains to be seen.
Like with him, and maybe I don't know. He can play some under center. I don't know if he still can. And is it worth it to do that and maybe do some play action when your run game has just not done anything this year? I don't know. But that option is, I think, somewhat available with him if they want to try that. But I think the key is now, and I felt like they should have done this. I thought it was fairly apparent in the first half of that Detroit game. It's like these routes that T and Jamar are having to run, a lot of them were longer routes. And it's like, what's the one thing you don't have? It is time for a quarterback to find a guy and let him run his route that's a little further down the field. You got to get those guys, I think, in shorter situations where he can find them. Because I think Jamar could get open in a phone booth, and T's a big target. And I think they have to do a little more of that So it mitigates this issue they're having with sacks in the offensive line, and now a quarterback that moves about as fast as those statues outside Great American Ballpark.
Well, and I feel like when you think about, especially with Jamar Chase, probably more so than T. Higgins, if you think about the highlights that you've seen of him throughout his career, I think you've seen as many of him blowing the top off somebody on a deep route as you have him coming back on some of those inside routes and coming back to the ball and then turning up and making a move on
Oh,
somebody.
yeah, absolutely. Those
So
work for him.
I think that it's probably a toss-up as far as how many you've seen in that regard as you've seen on the deep ball. So, yeah, give him a chance to go make a play. Put the ball in your playmaker's hands. But
Right, and they did that in one of the situations on Sunday. It was like just a little slant, and it may have been they may have ran a fourth down play. I can't remember. It was just a little slant to Jamar, and he got open like instantly. And it's like, please, more of this, because he'll break those. Right. I know, and you don't have any time. Your quarterback has no time. So we'll see. Hopefully they can button all that down, but I don't have a whole lot of confidence. And then the comment for Bearcat Nick is one of the first things I thought of, too, when it's like, oh, he'll start against the Packers, and they just picked up maybe the best defensive player in the league.
So how about this for a stat, George? This stat made me sick to my stomach. But Micah Parsons, as Bearcat Nick was talking in the chat about Micah Parsons, for those of you on the audio format only, Micah Parsons has 4 solo tackles. Jamar Chase has 5.
That's hilarious. Yeah, he for a while he may have had more tackles than catches last week for a while there until he exploded in the second half. That's got to be frustrating.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think at one point in the game they said he had 3 tackles and had 2 catches.
And you don't want him tackling.
No,
not with the money he's making. That's your only shot right now at having any hope. Any hope the rest of this season. Right.
I bite your tongue even thinking about him being hurt or anything, because that dude's so special, and you know, he was able to show it in that second half last week how special he is. I mean, that's why that would have been my that would have been my one thing if they would have gotten, and I would tell Flacco this too. You're pretty much throwing to Jamar and you're throwing to T, but I would just say, Jamar, go out there and get open. You know, do it quick, and I won't find you. I mean, just do it.
Well, and it was crazy that when Browning started to find Yoshi this past week, it opened things up for the other guys. Crazy that when you use your slot guy, I know that that's a foreign concept to Zach Taylor in this offense right now, but crazy when you use your slot guy that it opens things up for everybody else.
And I don't know what I should have looked. I mean, I probably saw his numbers, but I don't know what he had a pretty good game. Like, he made some plays. He was.
I got it right here. He had 5 for 80. Yeah, 5 for 82 on 7 targets. Pretty good day. Yeah, considering on the season he's got 7 total catches for 116. So that's the vast majority of his season right there.
Well, they gotta go back to that a little more as well. But they had to make a move. I'm glad they did. There's no way they could look those players in the eye and stand pat and run that back out there again.
No.
And, so I'm glad they did something. And is Flacco better than Wilson or better than Jameis Winston? I don't know. To me, you can just throw them up in the air and take your pick, because I don't know who's going to perform for you and who's not. I do know this. Joe Flacco has been very good, because he's been around a long time, at sliding into the clubhouse and into the locker room and picking up an offense pretty quickly. And he's going to have to do it this week.
Everyone he's ever been around has always had glowing reviews of who he is in that locker room. So
right.
I'm with you.
Yep. That's and you know what? For that reason alone, maybe he's the best of the lot that was out there. But to get him by just swapping from the 5th round back to the 6th, I can't believe the Browns did that, first of all. Like, why would you do that with a division rival? I wouldn't have done it if I were the Browns.
I don't know. I understand where you're coming from. Maybe that was.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess if it's the only deal on the table, but whatever.
And thank God the Browns don't have a good quarterback because everything else about that team is working right now. I mean, I know the wins aren't showing up, but their defense is a bitch. Their running game's pretty good. You know, they got all these young guys. It may turn out they had the best draft of anybody. Of course, they were picking early, but their young guys are terrific.
We'll see. We talked about that Packers game coming up on Sunday. That one again at 425. Green Bay opens as 14.5-point favorites. That line currently has not yet moved. Cincinnati plus 800 to win this one. Yikes.
Yeah, I'm not expecting much. However, look at the winnable games left on this schedule. Here,
I don't. What winnable games?
Okay, I'll give you one. Well, is the Steelers here winnable?
Well, so I'll go through them. You tell me if you think they're winnable or not. Steelers here. I don't think it's winnable.
Probably not, but I'm going to put it in the winnable category just so I can get to where I'm going.
Jets at home.
Winnable.
I agree. Bears at home.
Winnable.
I agree. Steelers in Pittsburgh.
Nope.
I agree. Patriots at home.
Nope.
I agree. Ravens in Baltimore.
Nope.
Buffalo in Buffalo.
Not a chance.
Ravens at home.
Yes.
Maybe winnable. Maybe. Dolphins in Miami.
Category. Dolphins, winnable.
In Miami? Okay. Cardinals at home?
Yes.
I think that's also winnable. I hate Arizona right now. And Cleveland at home to wrap it up.
I got that as a yes. I'm just trying to get them to 9 wins. That would get them to 9. I don't think it's going to happen. But that's why the Bengals have to make this move, because there are games. So let's just say Jets, Bears, Cardinals. That's 3 winnable for sure. And then the other 4 are toss-ups. You got to make this move to give yourself a chance in these toss-ups. And still have it. And 9-8 has not been good enough the last 2 seasons for the Bengals to get in. They've been sitting there at 9-8 since they've gone to 17 games. That's been their record both seasons, and they've missed the playoffs. So that's probably not going to be good enough this year. But the way this division's going, maybe it is. I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what the Steelers are yet. I really don't. I think the Ravens are going to bounce back. In fact, they're still the betting favorite to win the division, even though they're 1-4.
1-4, and maybe you luck into 1 or 2 that you weren't supposed to win that you did for the first 2 games of the season. I don't know. The NFL is
probably. I mean, if I'm being completely honest with myself, you're probably right. It's the Jets, the Bears, the Cardinals, and maybe the Dolphins are the best shots on there, because the Dolphins, I don't know what's going on there, but they're having some struggles. They're not looking very good at all, even though, individually there's some guys doing pretty well.
Yeah, I don't feel good about it. I'm with you, Zach. The Bengals probably, this might not be our year.
No, they're not. I don't think they're making the playoffs either. But as you sit here, you have to take every shot you can to try to make that happen. But they're liable to go up to Green Bay, and it could be a complete debacle. And
if they go to Green Bay and say some crazy Flacco magic happens, and you hang up 42 on Green Bay, are you feeling differently about the rest of the season?
Well, you would have to a little bit, I think. But, these guys have these flashes in the pan. Russell Wilson did it in week 2 this year. Threw for 400 yards. He did.
He did. You're right.
And these guys do have games. Remember when Flacco came off the couch, whenever that was, last year, the year before,
yeah.
and comes out and starts throwing 300 yards a game. It's like, what? And that stuff does happen. I'm not saying it's going to happen here. Especially,
he was doing it.
I'm sorry. I know everyone's sick of talking about the Bengals offensive line. The offensive line's sick of hearing about it. But you know what? they're not getting it done. They are the weakness by far of that offense, and that's why they can't do anything, and that's why they're in the shape they're in right now.
How do I follow that up, George? Let's switch.
Yeah, well, you know what? And we talked about this a few weeks ago, but now you got two rookies starting at guard. I don't know what's happened to Orlando Brown. How do you go out and you get Brown?
He looks lost.
They brought in Kappa and Karras. Kappa flames out. How did that happen? He was playing in his first year here. He was okay.
Orlando Brown looks lost out there.
Orlando Brown comes here and flames out like this because he's not playing worth a crap. I don't know what happens, but something is inherently wrong with what's going on with the offensive line in Cincinnati, and it's been that way for quite a while.
Well, let's switch topics here and go from bad to worse as the Cincinnati Reds season is over. I can't even believe that it was a week ago that they played their first playoff game and that they played a second playoff game in that time span, because it seems like 2 or 3 weeks ago at this point.
Yeah,
but the Cincinnati Reds lose to the Dodgers 10-5 in game 1 and 8-4 in their first game in October and forever. But they showed signs of life. Albeit they had, apparently they were tipping pitches in game 1. Hunter Green has a horrendous start, and
it was awful
for reasons I will never understand. Abbott doesn't pitch a single pitch in a must-win for your season. I think you need to throw every card on the table and let game 3 come to you as it may, if you make it that far. I didn't understand some of the moves. Poor Will Benson gets lost somewhere in the shuffle.
I'm not starting Littell in game 2 after what happened in game
No,
I'm just not. And I was surprised by that. And look, I like Francona, but there were a couple of weird things in that series. In that 2-game series, there were some weird moves. It's like, you gotta win tonight.
Hayes in right field after not playing right field the entire season.
Yeah, there was just some weird stuff, and I don't get it. It reminded me. I mean, I felt like sometimes it was the same way with Dusty when he got to the playoffs and he was still managing like it's a regular season and you're managing for the long term. But there's not a long term in these playoff series.
You got against the Dodgers.
And you're right. And Abbott should have been pitching game 2. I don't know. You got to fire all your guns in that situation. When you're back, you win or go home. And
because if Abbott's your starter in game 2, Littell is your second option if Abbott flames out. And at that point, Lodolo is your break glass in case of emergency for game 3.
Correct. Yep. That's what I would have done.
I
would have done.
I don't
understand. I don't know why they did that. That Hunter Green thing, I hope it was tipping pitches, because if it wasn't, and we'll see where they go from here. They still have a pretty good stock of young starting pitching, and I'm going to be interested to see what the deals bring, what they're willing to go do. And I wonder, do you think there's a market for Hunter Green out there? A trade? What do you think his value?
His value is invaluable right now because of how cheap he is comparatively to anybody else who's got stuff like him.
Well, that's a chip you might want to move.
I think you move the younger chips if you're moving guys.
Well,
we'll see. I guess I'm more frustrated by the fact that they're bringing every coach back. Every coach has been invited back.
I'm not bothered by that. I like these guys.
Well, I don't like.
I just sat here bitched about Tito's managing in that 2-game series, but I like this group. I think I think they got a pretty good thing going there.
I think you needed to probably find a new hitting coach because I don't know. And maybe we'll find out some more about in this offseason about what Ellie was going through in his stretch, what McLean was going through in his stretch. But if there isn't a good reason, then how do you defend bringing your hitting coach back for what McLean put up the entirety of this season?
Yeah, I don't know what's going on with him. Ellie, my biggest disappointment out of that whole postseason thing they were talking about was they're basically saying he's going to play shortstop again. I think everything should be on the table.
I know you hate that.
Well, I do. I mean, he led the frickin' league in errors as a shortstop. That's a critical position.
I guess you just going back to the hitting thing. I just wish you saw the stars in LA hit like stars are supposed to hit. You see Shohei come out and set the tone immediately. The first batter of game one, and he sets the tone. And granted, we didn't expect Friedel to be the guy doing that, but you would expect your leaders on this team to do that. And I never felt like you really got going in this one. And when you did have opportunity knocking, you had bases loaded, and you just can't figure out how to get the guys in.
No, and they've been and maybe that's to your point about the hitting coach, but my God, how
many games did you lose by 1 run?
Everybody's involved in that, but their situational hitting has been pretty bad. That's why you go, what was it? I think 3-12 in extra inning games or something like that. That's terrible. And that just tells you you're not getting that guy in from second when you start the inning, or the other guy's doing it a hell of a lot better than you are. And there's still a lot of things to fix. They've got to make some moves. What are they, Austin Hayes has that mutual option for next year. I think it's $12 million. So they both have to agree to it. I don't know if you bring him back. I hope they go out, and they need to land a couple of studs, and I just don't see them doing that.
Well, one of the guys that we had talked about last offseason going out and getting had 2 home runs against the Reds in game 1.
Yeah.
That would have been a great corner bat, but you didn't go out and get him, and the Dodgers get him on that one of those deferred contracts, and the rest is history.
Right. You look at the Red, and we'll see. The Reds say they don't know what their budget's going to be for next year yet, and all that stuff, and that's going to be kind of big. But I mean, their budget is right up there with what Milwaukee's playing with, and the Brewers are. They just get it done year after year. Whatever their motto is, they aren't afraid to trade guys that they know are going to be a problem to keep contractually, and so they get something out of them. They don't wait too long. That has been a very well run organization, and it pains me to say it, but it is true. I mean, the proof is right there in how they've performed over the years, and they own the Reds.
Well, we'll see what the Reds are able to do this offseason. I'm hesitant to believe that they're going to make a big, splashy, sexy move because you still probably need a big bat or two for some of those corner spots. First base comes to mind, unless you're putting Sal Stewart there.
I think that's what they'll do. I feel like that's what they'll do.
Well, and if that's the case, then you have what? Steer? Are you putting him in left field?
Maybe. Are you keeping Brian Hayes? I don't know. I love his defense, but it's tough to have a corner guy that just doesn't bring it offensively, and that's where they're at.
I hope they actually, because I think that they're probably going to have to trade guys to start to fill in this roster. I don't know that you're necessarily going to be able to just go out and make the signings that you need. They've got to be open to wheeling just about anyone. Anybody. I don't know that anybody should be off the table.
Right, because think about this. Are you and maybe his value's a little lower now than it was, but are they going to be able to re-sign Ellie long term? Probably not.
So we'll see. Like I said, just not holding my breath. Do you think the Brewers
Nick? The answer is no.
You just hate him there. We'll switch topics real quick as we're approaching the end of our hour here. FC FC Cincinnati, they win their first game of October, 1-0 over the New York Red Bulls. They were not favored in this game, but you'd love to see the win. Takes them to 19-5-9 and good enough on the table for second. Looks like they're probably going to finish in second when all
If
is
they
said
win
and
their
done.
next game, they definitely will, because while Miami could still tie them in points, the first tiebreaker is wins. And Cincinnati would have, I think they would have 20 if they win again. Do you have their record? Do you have that up?
19-5-9.
Yep. So if they get to 20,
Mhm.
and Miami's got what, 2 matches left?
They
can't
have
get to 20. They're at 17 right now. So if Cincinnati wins, they would nail down second place, even though that goal differential favors Miami, but that's the second or third tiebreaker. I think the second tiebreaker is goal differential.
So FC Cincinnati, they have 1 game left in this regular season as they have CF Montreal at home.
So that's the week after next.
Yes. That'll be on Saturday the 18th. So, yeah, we still got 11 days before that one. So, yeah, that season's winding to a close. But what's going on?
Season 2. That thing's been going on since, what, the end of February?
It's been forever.
Yeah.
February. There were not even mid-February. Their first game was February 19th.
Man.
Yep. What's going on in high school football around the city?
All about the Elder Panthers, baby. Big win over Moeller last Friday. Elder is 7-0, wins its first GCL title outright since 2008. Doug Ramsey, his hair's all white now. He's got a few years on him from when I first met him, when he took over that job back in the 90s. But he's doing a hell of a job, and that was a great win, 24-16 on Friday night at the Pit. You have Anderson still undefeated at 6-0, Taft 7-0, Baden 7-0, Indian Hill 7-0, Holy Cross in Northern Kentucky 6-0, and Chad's Lloyd Jugs got it done against Bourbon County. A battle between undefeateds, and Lloyd brings it home 7-0, 22-20, beating Bourbon County. So big Friday night. Still got a lot of teams undefeated. This week, Highlands 6-1 in Northern Kentucky goes to the Pit to play Elder. So that's a marquee game this week. Princeton at Oak Hills. I bring up Princeton. Princeton 6-1. It's a really good team to look out for. LaSalle plays St. X in the GCL. So that's the big battle of North Bend. King of the Road trophy on that one, North Bend Road. So the King of the Road trophy this Friday night. And another sneaky game, Middletown at Mason. Middletown quietly now 6-1, which is Middletown's best season in quite a while. And so they'll be at Mason on Friday night. So that's your high school football. So that's 7 weeks in, 3 more weeks, and it's playoff time.
Well, it sounds like the weather's starting to cooperate in that regard as well. So it's finally starting to feel like
a lot earlier too. Those Friday night lights will be coming on at 7 o'clock now.
Starting to finally feel like football weather instead of this late summer.
And it should be that way at Nippert Saturday, as you pointed out.
Yes, sir. Well, thanks everybody for joining us in the chat today. We certainly appreciate it. It's been a rough week, but thankfully we had the Cincinnati Bearcats to pull us out of the misery of what is Cincinnati sports. But thanks as always to our sponsors here, Cincy Light and Remington Tavern. Remington Tavern can be found at 8892 Glendale Milford Road, 45140, where they have their daily happy hour from 3 to 7 p.m., $5 bourbon whiskey Wednesdays, bottle cap bonanza Thursdays from 7 to 9 p.m. You can check them out on Instagram at RemingTavCincy or follow them on Facebook. But for George Vogel, I'm Aaron Smith. We'll be back here next Tuesday at 9 p.m. to discuss all of your Cincinnati sports.
Thank you, Aaron.